Happy New Year to you, our viewers, and thank you for being with us throughout 2022. And we do look forward for a progressive 2023. I am Lennox Gasper with your progress report. Today in our program, we will review the progress of the various sectors in 2022. We begin with the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Senior Counsel Anil Nandalal. Look, listen, and be reminded.
So we have passed some very crucial pieces of legislation already. I have detained you with two so far. Then you have the transplant bill. Right? It's now law. Now that has laid the foundation for us to do blood transfusion, organ transplant, bodily
donation,
all sorts of things. That some of which were being done in a completely unregulated way. Now we have a framework that is law. We have offenses, people who misbehave within that structure, and you have now a process and an infrastructure that will govern how these things operate. Again, we consulted. This piece of legislation is a product of the medical profession of Guyana. And they consulted with experts in the United Kingdom, Canada, United States, and Trinidad and Tobago. So I just give you that one example. There's nothing political about that. There's nothing PPP about that. That piece of legislation received the widest expression of consultation and engagement. In fact, it came from the profession. So we also enacted amendments to the deeds registry bill, deeds registry law, and the powers of attorney law. They were intended to protect our system of land ownership against the perpetration of fraud. We have a high incidence of people losing their property through fraudulent schemes and designs. Again, the Caribbean Court of Justice made recommendations. The Bar Association, the legal profession of this country, wrote and made recommendations. And every day you consult with people who are aggrieved by what is taking place, and they are losing their properties, etc. That is how we came up with that formulation of amendments. There are two pieces of legislation or bills that are in the Select Committee. One, the Hire Purchase Bill. Now, for the first time, we are going to put statutory expression to the law of hire purchase in Guyana. What we have is what you call the common law, where the hirer is the person who owns the property and he hires it to you, the person who is, in essence, purchasing. But you're not purchasing, you're basically renting. And that which you're paying as installments are monthly rents. Title only passes to you when you pay your final installment, and then you become the owner. And the law currently is that if you paid 95% of the purchase price and you default on the next installment, the hirer can seize and forfeit all your previous payment. Now that is very, very oppressive. But that is the law of Guyana. That is a common law we inherited from England. England changed that 50 years ago. We still have it like that in Guyana. We are changing it. Now, when we put the bill in the parliament, people who are engaged in hire purchase transactions, they said they would like to be heard. All the car dealers, courts, Guyana Limited, the banks, various stakeholder organizations, say they would like to be heard. We didn't use our one-seat majority in an autocratic way and force it down anybody's throat. We said, okay, we will hear you. We sent it to a select committee. And that's where it is.
It's right now.
To receive the input from the outer population, the wider population. The other bill that we have is the amendments to the Narcotics Act to remove custodial sentences from small quantity of marijuana. We promised that in our manifesto. And we are now delivering on that promise. Isn't that democracy? Isn't that accountability?
Minister within the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, Anand Prasad, was a key driver in the restoration of City Hall, a project that is ongoing.
For years, that building has been left to deteriorate. That is an eyesore in Georgetown. It is one of our historic buildings in Guyana. And I don't want to hit at the mayor, but I have to. For me, he is not serving the citizens of Georgetown the way that they're supposed to be served. Take, for instance, the cleanup campaign that was initiated by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali. From then to now, when you look at Georgetown, or you drive across this country, you see a different Guyana. And the mayor was one of the persons who jumped on the bandwagon to knock this project down. But as a caring government, as a government who wants to transform this country, the president decided to launch this cleanup campaign, which is continuing. And here is where I want to urge the residents to take care of your garbage in the proper manner, dispose of it properly, and do not litter. This is Georgetown, our garden city, and we want it to remain that way. So let's get back to City Hall. It is in a deplorable state. And the government decided, His Excellency and the Cabinet decided that we're going to expend in excess of $800 million. That is a rollover project. It's a multi-year project. It's done by a company out of Trinidad, Fides Construction, and works have commenced. I think we had given $200 million last year for the commencement and another $300 million this year. And it's an 18 months project. Hopefully it will be completed within that time frame.
In the area of education, Minister Priyamani Chan shared the President's vision to introduce computer coding in primary schools. The recommencement of the school feeding program, the 100,000 cash grant for children living with disability, and the Edu FM radio launch to support education delivery in the hinterland.
We believe that in this generation, every child should have access to what are the new ways of engaging. And so computer coding across primary schools would help us to do that. And you know, when we implement anything, it's not in any particular area or another to the detriment of the areas left out. So this would be across primary schools. We're looking forward to rolling it out. School feeding in Guyana started under the Barjagdeo presidency, and we have not been able to stop. So when we first started that program, it was fully funded by the World Bank. And when the World Bank stopped funding that program, the local economy and the government invested in it because we believe it's very useful. We have seen better attendance, better enrollment, and better results from school feeding. And so from September coming, we're actually adding to the school feeding program by making sure every grade 6 child has a hot breakfast. We think grants are a help to parents and a help that is needed now, especially with rising costs around the world, which we can't protect our people from completely and cushion completely. So we believe that it's important to give that assistance. That is something we promised when we were asking people for their support and vote. And so we are very interested in making sure we fulfill that promise. Some of the other ways we can support children are smaller classrooms, providing textbooks to our children from the government's level, from the government's pocket, making sure there are more trained teachers in the classroom, making sure there are more teachers in the classroom. And those are all measures we are actively taking right now.
In the area of sports, who can forget the Cricket Carnival? Culture, Youth and Sports Minister Charles Ramson Jr. shared with us the country's readiness to host the tournament for the next 3 years and some of the significant achievements in this sector.
There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We're having multiple meetings a week. It's something that the president is directly involved in, so he is not just launched this, he's taken it on as something that's important for the country because it's the first time that we're doing it. It's the first time we've gained CPL and CPL semifinals, CPL finals and semifinals, and then we're now combining it with Cricket Carnival. And in the combination justifies our decision to do that because it allows more than just about cricket. It's about the evolution of our cultural artists and our businesses that are going to get opportunities to work, and everybody just expands the entire initiative into taking it into much more opportunities for people beyond the fact that we've been able to get the finals and the semifinals in the country. So it's a benefit for everyone. There's a lot of work happening behind the scenes. I mean, we're working pretty hard on it. So sometimes when I appear and disappear, it's because we're like really knuckling down just to see that these events are being planned and planned well, because we're getting to showcase Guyana to the world. We haven't let the country down so far in all the things that we've done both nationally and internationally, and we don't intend to start now. I mean, that comes with a lot of preparation, and it's something that it's also very important to everyone in the country and the president, and so that's why we're putting a lot of effort into it.
Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Nigel Dharamlal, reported on government's development works at the local and municipal levels.
Well, we have had some challenges in terms of dealing with many of the NDCs as well as many of the municipalities. Because government has such an important role to play in community development, we have decided as a government that we are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting so that the burden is not placed on some of these local democratic organs. We've had some challenges too in terms of the administration of some of these local democratic organs, where a lot of decisions that have been taken at the local level have been taken outside of the mandate of some of these councils, but more particularly some of these decisions that were taken had a lot of political underpinnings. And so we are trying assiduously to make these bodies as independent as possible and make them more inclusive in their decision making with the communities. I recently visited one community, Buxton, a few evenings ago, and many of them indicated that decisions that have been taken were done without consultation with the community. I visited another APNU, AFC-run council in Firish, Gibraltar, where lands were given out without due process. We have some cases on the West Coast where that has happened as well. We have other cases right here in the city of Georgetown where decisions are taken without a due process. I've had the opportunity of receiving a report from the Auditor General on a forensic study that was done on the city of Georgetown. We are in the process of perusing it with the technical people and those who have the know-how in terms of the findings. And what I can tell you from almost a layman's perspective, that things are not very well in the city of Georgetown. And it is unfortunate that the government has to say this and the mayor has no time to deal with these issues. I've received so many complaints every single day, including the ward where I live, that they have not been picking up garbage. I don't know if it's because I live there or or just incompetence. When I did find out from the City Council, they indicated to me that one of the service providers, the mayor did not want the service provider to provide service to the city. So I believe that moving forward, we have to spend more time strengthening the administration of these councils and making sure that the elected officials are held accountable for their lack of work, for want of a better expression. I'm excited because I work a lot in the hinterland now and before, and the president in his speech during the course of this morning to the National Two-Shows Council conference said that we've invested in just a mere 23 and a half months over $50 billion directly. This is almost tangible development in Amerindian villages. This is outside of all of the non-tangible support that we provide, operations and administration. These are things that you can actually see where villages are transformed. So over $50 billion. But I think more importantly than the money that we have spent, the president spoke about equity and Amerindian people having access to similar facilities and services as we are in Georgetown. And we have been working a lot in terms of building infrastructure, both the soft infrastructure as well as physical infrastructure, to get people trained, to get more people employed, to get better services provided. One of the commitments of His Excellency was the payment of pension in villages, and that has been happening. Of course, you're going to find some cases where it has not happened, but I'm happy that he reinforced it again today, and the technical people hopefully are taking note of what the president said. And I think that Amerindian, despite their demographic, we are going to spend the resources to make sure that they become an equal partner in the development of our country.
In agriculture, by the second quarter of 2022, the ministry's progress report was one of tremendous achievement.
Took a sector that was very, you want to say very slow, or was almost dead, right, in the previous government. A sector that was not moving apace, and this sector is today competing with one of the most lucrative sector in our country, oil and gas. Before 2020 August, very few Guyanese was talking about agriculture. Many Guyanese would have called it a day, would have moved away from agriculture. The government of the day, the former government, every time you talk about development in the country, wait until oil and gas revenue come on stream. Now we are seeing agriculture is competing not to bring in the revenue, but to whip up the interest. We have seen a renewed interest, not only with the old set of people or the traditional farmers, but we are seeing more farmers. We are seeing farmers from different backgrounds. We are seeing now new people coming out and coming on board and say they want to get into agriculture. That's a tremendous achievement in just 2 years. Tremendous achievement. So the oil and gas sector is now helping the agriculture sector to develop more because the farmers are getting more price for their produce. And with the local content bill that we have passed, we now have guaranteed Guyanese farmers to ensure that they have sales in the oil and gas market. So instead of now producing to feed Guyana alone, you have 1,500 more people or 15,000 more people coming to Guyana expat. You have to feed them. They need high value crops. They need crops at a certain standard. So that is where agriculture is contributing, and we are now filling in. Before, when the oil and gas sector came to Guyana, they used to bring in things from overseas. Now they buy in from Guyanese. Now the farmers are getting those benefits. And those are the achievements I'm talking about. Not just achievement to show as an ordinary achievement, an achievement to show artificially, but achievements are there where the farmers are now producing to fill this void. We are seeing the infrastructure has transformed. The infrastructure has transformed. When we took government in 2021, we have suffered one of the most devastating flood. From that time to now, every time now is July, we still have the rain falling. But we are not getting this kind of big flooding anymore. We have pumps, we have sluices, we have canals, we have desilted these things. We are making more machinery and equipment available. And that is the way transform the agricultural landscape through infrastructure, right? What we are doing, we build We are expending almost $1 billion to build road in the Tacoma Savannah so that people can have land open up. We have farm to market road where thousands of acres of new land are coming under cultivation and open up to farmers. So those are the achievements I am talking about, monumental achievement for our country. Barbados today is looking forward to Guyana for food support. I sent a price list to the Minister of Agriculture in Barbados that what things they want in Guyana. The Prime Minister of Trinidad came here, he sent back another team to Guyana to look at the agriculture sector. So the entire Caribbean, they are impressed with what we are doing. And we are not only leading the process, we are giving them technical advice. I sent a technical team to Barbados to start the brackish water shrimps that we are doing in Guyana. I'll be sending another technical team to look at highland rice in Trinidad. So you could see the kind of the confidence that the people repose in us now to push it. And that came about because of His Excellency foresight.
Regarding tourism, the Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, Onich Walron, highlighted government's policies instituted to improve trade over the past 2 years.
We have a vision, a clear vision, that Guyana will become the premier destination for tourists. And so the tourism product which we're developing is very diversified. We just spoke about the sport tourism, actually, sport and culture tourism, because the carnival aspect is culture. And so we plan on doing a lot of that. We are partnering every time we go out, the Middle East, the North America, or diaspora especially, but we are also partnering with Barbados in twinning our tourism product. Barbados is just 2 hours away, so we are marketing Guyana and Barbados together. So you come to Guyana for the adventure and the thrill seekers, the bird watchers, and then you go and you relax in Barbados in the sun, sand, and sea. And that is how we're planning on twinning the Caribbean, those Caribbean countries. And we have invited other Caribbean countries to do the same with us. So that is one way, as well as Brazil. For the Cricket Carnival, Brazil is a market of 200 million persons. And so we are planning to incorporate Brazil in the tourism. Brazil is right next door, and it's an untapped resource for tourists. And the Cricket Carnival, you will see a presence of the Brazilian Carnival band. You know, the Carnival in Brazil is a big one as well. So that's our way of partnering with our neighbors to be able to get the bodies and the visitors from the interests. That way we will promote in Guyana. We have a council in the Roraima, state of Roraima, and we have an active tourism collaboration with the state of Roraima, and we're working to get there. Already tours that come out of Roraima that go through to Region 9 with Guyana. So there are many partnerships in which we're looking at. We're actively also engaging with the Middle East. That's a huge tourism potential. The people in the Middle East, in Qatar and in Dubai, there are people there is that untapped resource for persons who are interested in coming to experience our ecotourism product. So it's there. We're working on all counts. Many of those, with the talks with Barbados, those initiatives have already started to advance. We were already advertising in Barbados. We've already going to be at the World Trade Market. We're going to be working with Barbados and marketing our products. So these are not just talks. These are actual initiatives that have been advanced. We have the working groups and we have the agreements. So different stages of advancement depend on where. In the Middle East, we're still working on solidifying that collaboration. And as you know, that is what our president is known for these novel ideas and novel vision, and being able to drive it and bringing it into fruition. So I can't take all of the credit. The president has a tremendous vision for the tourism potential of Guyana, and following up on these initiatives have been, you're seeing the buy-in from from our partners in that, this can actually work. And the pandemic has been a blessing and a curse. What it has done is caused the entire region to rethink tourism, rethink their products. We realize that we're all interdependent and dependent on each other. And when Guyana does good, well, Barbados does good and Trinidad does good. And so we are looking at more partnerships and tourism, no less.
The progress of the Ministry of Labor's progress report is similar to other ministries. Minister Joseph Hamilton tells of the numerous programs executed by his ministry for 2022.
Everything I do and say, I like to frame it between the three pillars that was established to run the ministry. One is the issue about capacity building, what has happened. So we have had, within the ministry itself, capacity building for staff, which is ongoing. As I speak to you, we are about to launch a program for all staff, I believe, must be trained. That's a program that has to do with customer relations. So we have departments here, the labor officer, the OSH officer, the CR. All of them, I think, should have an understanding about customer relations. How you relate to a person. Even though you have the law on your side, I believe you can have better responses and cooperation from an employer if you know how to approach the matter. And so we are about to do that. As I speak to you, I think about 13 or more officers from the Board of Industrial Training, as I speak to you. They're undergoing training with the Guyana National Bureau of Standards, training to make them compliant with ISO 4501, because at the level of it is not just training. You have to be able to monitor and evaluate training to see whether we are making progress, whether we are changing lives, whether we are training people who can become employable. So the training at BID is not for the fancifulness of saying we're having training happening. And that is the reason why we leave it to communities to make recommendation and requests for the type of training they want in their community. That's the first point. So capacity building continues with the officers. Many of them, they have done international training. They have gone overseas to train. Who will participate and operate within the oil and gas sector, both OSH and labor officers. At the level of maritime, they have done training with MARAD because labor officers and OSH officers should be on every ship that comes through the Demerara Channel and wherever. So those things, to effect it, you have to have the specific training to do. So that is happening at the level of the ministry itself. And we continue to execute training through the length and breadth of Guyana, skill development and training for persons, young people, retired persons, women specifically, and the important thing of causing women to think outside the box, to move beyond the narrowness of the type of training they were exposed to over the decades, move into the area of what we call the hard skills training program, so they can properly participate in the economy. And importantly for females who are listening, what I'm saying, and males, the majority gender in Guyana is the female population. You know, Mr. Gaspar didn't know that, because you all men operate like you all are majority. and that's a good thing. So we cannot continue to exclude females from some specific training. That means half of the population we will be excluding. We cannot be talking about national development and we don't have women trained in this technical skill, heavy duty equipment operator, steel benders, welding and fabrication, building construction, plumbers, electricians, because already we are short of skills. And if we continue with the narrowness of training, excluding women, we will suffer more.
The Hinterland Housing Program was the highlight of the Ministry of Housing and Water. The road work on the Eccles to Diamond Highway and the construction of the Schoonard to Crane Highway also resonated.
We have envisaged initially for the construction of a number of houses within various communities in the hinterland. And how the model is that you utilize the local skills as well as for the materials. So for example, we have a community that we are assisting now because of the flooding, Kukrit, way up in the Barama River. So they have commenced a land clearance for construction of some hinterland houses there to allow removal from the front because they are prone in the water from the rising level of water. Then you have the program that has been announced by the President for LETEM, which we will be returning to LETEM very shortly to start that pre-qualification process. And then we will see more communities being involved in benefiting from our hinterland program. So the hinterland housing program will take off in a major way now. The major road networking construction program we have ongoing, and that is for the 4-lane construction from Eccles to Diamond, and those were awarded in lots. The lot 1 is from Eccles to somewhere in the vicinity of the Providence Access Road. That is progressing well, and we did address that lot in a major way to fast track for it to be able to be accessed as quickly as possible. It's vulnerable because we also have the issue at the industrial road, the Eccles Industrial Road, where we have concrete drains that are being constructed on both sides between what we call Windsor Junction to where our existing 4-lane ends from the Mandela to Eccles location. So lot 1 is progressing well. Concrete is already pouring on that lot. So we are pleased about that. So it is envisaged that you will have an access in time for within the next 2 weeks, in time for Cricket Carnival, to have an access on that road to help and aid. Of course, we have a long-term plan for the East Bank, but I'm speaking particularly now to help and aid in terms of another route for the congestion that is expected for the carnival period. We can't just look at it simplistic. You also have to look at the downtime and the amount of time when you have to spend in that line, whether going over or whether you're coming back over. And so even if you look at that period between the bridge to Vredenhoek or maybe to Best, it takes that takes up most of your time if you're traversing to Parika. And so the downtime that you spend it's costly money. They say time is of essence and value. But in addition to that, the new route will also provide an alternative for persons, and because this forms part of the President's vision of another route that will be from Schoonard to Parika. And so this only is basically our first phase. But even when you're going to have that continued route to Parika, you will have to have access within the communities. And so with us and our housing, as well as our house lots allocations that are taking place on Region 3. And by the way, with the allocation exercises that we have done for Region 3, it's specifically we have only allocated, these are persons who are residing in Region 3 that we have allocated to. And so this means a major and a big way. So materials are required to be traversed, to be transported. Employment opportunities when you have construction, whether housing, whether road, doesn't matter what type of construction, opportunities for electricians, plumbers, carpenters, laborers, you name it. Then you have the transportation sector. In addition to that, you have a spin-off for the shop persons, the person who supply food, because workers will, some of them, they don't all work with food, they buy snacks or they buy lunch. So it's a whole host of trickle-down effect on our country, but more importantly for the people of Region 3, it's an upliftment. The value, obviously, for those persons where those roads pass through, immediately your value of your land go up. Right immediately. And this is a similar point on the East Bank we've been making. What was considered the back of East Bank allocations from off of the East Bank main road, now with other access roads, it becomes like a front. And or your value, from the time we allocate you a land, the cost you pay for that land, the value goes up immediately.
Minister Pauline Sukai reported on the successful follow-up visit of a government team to Region 1 to address residents' concern regarding the heart of palm industry, the importance of government support in keeping the Amerindian culture alive and preserving the Amerindian languages.
He has asked us to coordinate by the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development, Minister of Water and Housing, and Ministry of Amerindian Affairs to visit Region 1 to discuss with the villagers who support the industry, the heart of palm industry, which AMCAR, the investor, is conducting in Region 1. So we met with the villagers and the harvesters. There were some concerns that were raised by the company with His Excellency with respect to attempting to increase production. And in so doing, they needed support of the government to provide some level of encouragement to the villagers to see the investment as an opportunity to seek employment or gain employment and to earn income. So we held a consultation with the villagers, a number of them, Arukamai, Red Hill, Tobago, Whitewater, Aruka Mount, Sibai, a lot of villages. And so their main concern was that they needed a price increase. They also needed better access to the heart of palm trees, which were far away, and in the marshlands where its access were difficult. They also wanted the company to express and support them in terms of their corporate responsibilities. And so we took all of those into concern, and the company accompanied us, and they agreed that there are going to be some improved relations with respect to more engagement with the villagers and the harvesters. There's been a little lull in that because of COVID-19 when they couldn't hold meetings and so on. So they have said they're going to resume a much more robust discussion with the harvester and the village council. They are also going to consider supporting the digging of canals that will bring much more easier access to the heart of palm. There was also a matter of royalties being paid to the village. The matter of royalty was that for a number of years, AMCAR did not pay royalties to the village with respect to the supply of the heart of palm, and therefore they will also look at that, the documentation of the amount of cabbage supplied. And so we also made a recommendation and a proposal that the harvesters should also have a standardized measurement or grading system for the heart of palm, and so the instrument or the equipment used for conducting the grades will have to be something that is standardized by the Bureau of Standards. So we came away with some agreements by the company and the villagers. The meetings were pretty amicable. There were issues on both sides that need to be improved, and both parties seemed satisfied when we concluded the discussions. So I believe that the objective of working to keep the heart of palm industry, which is very, it's a niche, will gain some level of strength, and we will be able to see AMCAR continuing production, increasing production. AMCAR also extended an opportunity for villagers to work on their manicole or palm of heart farms, heart of palm farms, and so villagers said they are willing to work, and they too will be able to work out individual employment opportunities with AMCAR. The villagers also requested the review of their contract. So that will occur, maybe not right away, because they still have this agreement where they have options of the payment. Some requested cash, some requested a combination of barter and cash, and some requested barter as a sole source of how they supply and receive compensation or remuneration for the product. So, like I said, we came away with some agreement. The meetings were successful, and we are assured that both parties had no serious major conflict. All discussion was amicable, and the parties also paid recognition to the existence of AMCAR and the relationship for more than 20 plus years. So that was majorly what our combined team went down to Region 1 to address. Any government should ensure that the preservation of culture, tradition, customs are safeguarded and protected and preserved. That's what provide the identity of the people of their country. And so for us in Guyana, the First People or the Amerindians or the indigenous people, we have no objections to how our First People want to call themselves, but our government has been in full support of ensuring that their culture is advanced and that they preserve their customs and traditions. And therefore, the month of activities which highlight their contribution, showcasing their culture, their food, their dances, is going to reinforce that our government has prioritized cultures of our people in this country. And with the concept of building a One Guyana, we believe that everyone, even though we're all Guyanese, everyone should be able to practice and to nurture and to be proud of their culture and their languages too. So it is important. In fact, our government also will proceed to address the issue of languages that are at risk of disappearing, and so the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs has budgeted some monies to begin that process again now that we're back in office. The Amerindian people themselves has a responsibility to ensure that they keep their culture intact and that their future generation and the current generation is proud of who they are. Language and culture actually reveals or reestablish your identity, and it's important for us to identify our unique, cultural heritage. Prior to now, our government did have a fund, well, an allocation in our budget which deals with the revival of languages. And we've had in 2013 and 2014 the village of Kapui, where children below the age of 88 was grouped into classes so that they could be able to be taught the Arawak languages. And we are continuing that. This year we also have allocation to do that. But the language is not really lost for a number of the nations. For example, the Makushi and the Wapishan languages, everyone in the Region 9 or in the Rupununi, they speak their languages. The Waiwai still speak their languages. Akawayan, Arakun, and Patamunas, they still speak their languages. The issue now is to provide some level of support for putting those languages into a written form. That will take a combined effort of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, Education and Amerindian Affairs, that we will have to coordinate at some point in time. How do we move forward in ensuring that learning material and that the language is transferred into a written form. There are some dictionaries that were produced, and I believe that's a good starting point. The Arawaks and the Carib, there's few Carib-speaking villages, and there's one barometer that speaks exclusively Carib, and they're also speaking English. So that there's no risk for that language also. It's the Arawak language on the coastal areas that are at risk, and therefore we will have to pay some attention to getting the Arawak language taught to our youths, and our ministry is proceeding to involve the community service officers as the first trainer and the first group of youths who will be taught the language, and then they will in turn be able to teach the children or others. So that is something we will have to look at. There's preservation already of languages for about 8 of the languages, and we need to move ahead with that, making it into a written language. And the other phase, or the earlier phase, will be to ensure that the Arawak language is revived. The Waraos, now we have an influx of migrants, a lot of Waraos, and I believe the Waro population in our country is very minimal, and that language has to be addressed.
Reporting on the progress made with the Low Carbon Development Strategy, LCDS, since 2009 is a senior minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh.
Let me say how pleased I am to be able to participate in this signing ceremony. I want to reflect a little bit on the history that got us here, because this project is financed, as Lorena very appropriately said when she spoke, and this is the word that Mr. Balgobin spotted at the same time that I spotted it. This project is not financed by loan, it is not financed by grant, it is financed by monies that have been earned by the people of Guyana as revenue paid to our country for the global climate services that we're providing. And it emerged from the original low carbon development strategy. And Lorraine, I want to thank you for your very explicit acknowledgement that this is financed out of monies that were earned by Guyana, and earned by Guyana a long time ago. This project has its roots, in fact, I shouldn't say this project, this allocation of $80 million has its roots in the original low carbon development strategy. And the Guyana Red Plus Investment Fund, the GRIF, that was established under the original LCDS. And at the time that $80 million was
set aside to invest in clean and renewable energy, with the IDB as the implementing partner entity, as I think it was called under the GRIF architecture. This amount, in fact, was intended originally as government contribution to the Amila Falls hydropower project. That's the background to this $80 million. And we had at that time a major international investor, the Blackstone Group, who was willing to do the Amila Falls hydropower project. But political events intervened, as a result of which that project was stalled and ultimately derailed. And for more than 5 years, these resources, in fact, for more than 7 years, these resources ended up being parked in the IDB and unutilized. We heard Ariel say that for several years he's been working on this. And in fact, this has been going on, Ariel, since before you assumed responsibility for the energy division. Had the Amila Falls project gone ahead at the time that it was originally conceptualized and at the time that these resources were set aside for that project, Amila Falls today would have been supplying power to our grid from a completely clean and renewable source, hydropower. Like I said, political events intervened and the $80 million were not deployed for the Amila Falls project. Happily, we are now able to achieve a reformulation of the use of the $83 million, still in pursuit of the cause of advancing our clean and renewable energy agenda. Now, of course, we have a successor LCDS, Low Carbon Development Strategy, the LCDS 2030. We have articulated an agenda for pushing ahead with clean and renewable sources of energy. It would interest you to know, Ariel, that I'm sure you're probably aware already that we have committed to installing approximately 500 megawatts of new power, comprising first and foremost the gas to energy project, which we consider gas to be a transition fuel. So we anticipate 250 megawatts of new power to come from the gas to energy project. We will still be pursuing the Amila Falls project, which we anticipate will give us 150 megawatts of power. And we have a number of other energy projects, including this new 33 megawatts of power coming entirely from solar sources. And just for the purposes of emphasis, these 33 megawatts will be distributed across Berbice, 10 megawatts in Berbice, 8 megawatts in Essequibo, and 15 megawatts in Linden, if I'm not mistaken. I want, first and foremost, to acknowledge the instrumental role that would have been played by the then president, now vice president, in articulating the original low carbon development strategy at a time when there was no market for forest carbon storage, there was no market for carbon credits, articulating a vision and concluding with the Kingdom of Norway a pioneering partnership agreement under which Guyana was paid or was eligible to be paid $250 million for the climate services that we provided. And the original LCDS and that arrangement under which Norway paid us under a bilateral partnership is now widely acknowledged as a historic, pioneering initiative in the global climate agenda. It represented at the time one of the largest partnership agreements on the subject of forest carbon, and continues to be an example that is held up globally, worthy of replication. Now, of course, the carbon markets have evolved. We now have a successor, LCDS, where we hope to be able to sell our carbon credits. We've already gone to the market, and that process is advancing smoothly. But I want in particular to acknowledge the leadership, intellectual leadership and political leadership provided by then President Jack Day in getting us to this point. Secondly, the project is of course important from the point of view that it does add 33 much needed megawatts of power in a grid that currently does not generate enough power relative to our demand. Thirdly, as has already been said, it does advance us significantly down the road of the transition to clean and renewable sources. And fourthly, like I said, given that it is financed under the GRIF, it's a project that has very important symbolic importance to us. In addition to acknowledging President Jack Dew's, now Vice President Jack Dew's role in formulating this agenda, I want also to acknowledge, and we must constantly ensure that this story is documented for posterity. I want to acknowledge also the instrumental role played by the Kingdom of Norway in this pioneering partnership, one without a parallel at the time. And I want also to acknowledge our friends at the IDB, many of whom have persevered with this for a long time. Ariel, you and your predecessors.
Last and certainly not least, let us now hear from the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, who updated us on the progress in his sector.
Well, I think we have made significant progress. We have two main companies that are working on these hospitals. So the first one, which is the pediatric and maternal hospital, that's a 256-bed hospital. It's located in Ogle, and we have already handed over the site to the contractor. The contractor, as you know, is an Austrian company called VAMED, and they have taken over the site. So very soon you would see site preparation happening. And while they're doing the site preparation, they've engaged the Ministry of Health and our technical team to finalize the design of the hospital. So I suppose by very soon you will start seeing them laying the foundation and putting in some of the other things to build that hospital. They're working with quite a tight timeline, so we'll see progress very quickly on the site. So in addition to that hospital, we have 6 other hospitals that we're working on. The contracts for those have also been signed. So if we start from Regions 2, we have identified the site, and the contractor would be going on the site shortly to start construction. In Region 3, we have identified a site at Dikendren because we wanted something that would be closer to the Parika Tushin area, where you have a surge of people in and around that area. So there's a lot more population, and we need to have a hospital facility in that area. So they have started the site preparation. So the place has been leveled, and they have to, it's actually a very big site, so they're now building a road to get to the site proper, along with filling the site. We expect that maybe in another week or so that should be completed, and once that is completed, we'll hand the site over to the contractor. When we come to Regions 4, we are building a hospital at Diamond, and again, the site has been cleared, preparation has started, and very soon we'll be handing over that site to the contractor. At Enmore, again, site preparation was completed, and that site has been handed over to the contractor. Similarly, in Bath, we have been working on the site, and very soon, in another couple of days, we'll be handing over that site to the contractor. And in number 75 Village, again, we have been able to complete all the works on the site, and we have handed it over to the contractor. So I think since we last spoke, we have made significant progress at each of these sites, and we'll see work starting soon.
Yeah. Minister, in terms of the upgrades that we are seeing happening as well in terms of to the primary healthcare facilities and things of that nature, tell us a little bit about those upgrades, as well as your thoughts on the responses that people have in relation to these upgrades and the necessities of those in those areas.
So this year the ministry has allocated close to $1 billion Guyana to upgrade various facilities across the regions. We started this process last year, and we tested it out in Region 6, and we got very good response. And so this year we spent $100 million, almost $100 million per region, looking at various health centers. In some cases, patients would have told us they needed to have a better place for waiting. They wanted better sanitary facilities and so forth. So depending on the specific needs of the health center, we were able to get contractors in and to fix those things up. So in Region 1, we have actually done work on 35 health facilities in Region 1. This includes health posts and health centers, and we have spent approximately $99.3 million. In Regions 2, we did work on 24 health centers and health posts, and we spent $99.9 million. In Region 3, we did 31 health facilities. We spent about $99.7 million. In Regions 4, we worked on 30 different facilities. Some of them needed more work than others, and we spent $138.9 million on the facilities in Region 4. In Regions 5, they identified 14 health centers for us to work on, and we spent $46.9 million on those facilities. In Region 7, we did 16 facilities, and we have spent $99.6 million on those 16 facilities. Regions 8, we did 22 facilities, and we spent $99.5 million on the facilities. And in Regions 9, we did 53 facilities, spending $99.9 million on those facilities. In Regions 10, they have identified 17 facilities, and we have spent $48.4 million on those facilities. So as you can see, there's a lot of work that was done in a very short period of time. And I think the experiences so far has been quite a positive one. I've had the opportunity of visiting quite a number of these places. Last week I was in Region 6, and I think people were very happy with the enhanced facilities. I was in Aichuni just a few days ago, and in Aichuni we were able to do back the roof of the health center there. We did the floor, the roof, we did a waiting area, we did some of the sanitation facilities, and we also did the area where the ambulance is going to be housed. And I think the community was very happy with that. So the reaction by and large has been a very positive one from the people who have to use the facility.
That has brought us to the end of our program. Thank you for staying with us throughout 2022. And together, with great expectation, we look forward to a progressive and productive 2023. For DPI, I have been your host, Lennox Gasper. Thank you for watching.